Okay, so anyways, the first reason that I'm uploading this bonus video is that I'm going to be heading off to college here in the next few days. So I just thought I'd be able to upload all of my videos, and then I'll bring you some videos a later time when I get more settled in. So I didn't want to like do any cliffhangers or anything with the water temple, so I just wanted to leave it at that. Second reason I'm doing this video is that when I was going through the water temple, I was with my nephew, so I wasn't able to be open with any of my thoughts or anything about the water temple. And I know a lot of people are looking forward to that, and you know, my nephew is awesome. Oh, absolutely, I had a blast with him. But also at the same time, though, as I'm sure that people wanted to hear my feelings about the water temple, just how it's held up over time, and so that's what this video is here for. Is that so that way I have my own separate video, so I could talk about the water temple, because it's a big controversial topic in the Zelda series. So, all right, so here it goes. So, to start with the water temple, just starting with my own true feelings with the water temple, is that well, first let me say that I happen to be one of the most fortunate Zelda players alive when it comes to the water temple, and I'm also pretty biased towards the water temples because, well, first I naturally like water. I know a lot of people don't like water levels in video games, and so I don't know, it's kind of been a stigma or something like over the years of gaming. A lot of people don't like water temples, but for me, I have a soft spot for natural environments like water and ice and grass and fire. Just pretty much anything that has a natural looking environment vibe, it's just something that I enjoy. And the second thing is that the iron boost thing doesn't really bother me as much as a lot of people, and I'll actually get into that here for a second. So let me go back to the part where I said that I was very fortunate with the water temple. When I first came across the water temple as a kid, I said somewhere back in the start of the Forest Temple segment, somewhere around the hookshot, that a lot of us as friends had a lot of struggles with the game because, well, we couldn't figure out exactly where to go or anything. And so the water temple, and this is no big surprise or anything since we didn't have any strategy guides or anything at the time, the water temple became very infamous for stumping a lot of players. And so on approaching the water temple my first time as a kid, and again, I'm going back to the very fortunate side, is that because a lot of friends were telling me, oh, it's the worst place ever, it's the worst temple ever, and a lot of people, none of my friends actually didn't get past the temple or anything. They were all stuck there, and then they just pretty much just quit Zelda. Yeah, the water temple by itself, it does do that to some people. I've heard some people say they struggle through it for hours, some for days, and some for weeks. Alright, and then, well, when I went through the water temple, I decided to play it smart. Yeah, this was back when I was around like 12 years old or something, when I was playing Ocarina of Time and going through the water temples. I decided to play it smart. That's because a lot of players got overwhelmed with the large amount of rooms. There's like 3 different stories you could go through, and there's like 12 different rooms you could go in at once, and it was a little bit overwhelming. And I'm probably guessing because a lot of players got stumped in the water temple for a long time is that they started to complain about the iron boots because you had to switch them back and forth, because if you get lost, you'll get stuck there for hours, and then you're just stuck there just switching the boots on and off. That's probably the reason that the iron boots wasn't a big problem for me, is because I actually had to find time going through the water temple. So just to be honest, from my perspective, when I went through it the first time, I actually didn't have a lot of troubles with it. Is that well, like a lot of people were saying, oh, it's the worst thing ever and things, is that really the key thing behind it is to not really let yourself get overwhelmed by everything. So as a kid, when I was going through the water dungeon and things, I went through one room at a time, and I kept notes and in my head on where to go, on places where I needed the long shot, on places where I needed to raise the water level to get to certain places, like that bombable wall on the second floor. You know which one I'm talking about if you know where that water level thing is. Anyways, it's right above Rudo, anyways. And another thing that stumped a lot of people is that they couldn't find that small key. Both in that bombable wall I just told you about, and the other one is that it happens to be in that center pillar. So, like, over the next, well, the one that, like, rose the water temple up to the second floor, anyways, is that a lot of people didn't realize that platform right there actually floated, so you could actually get down into the basement and find the small key. I didn't have a problem with either. So, the reason is because, as I said, is that after I got the map and the compass, I realized that there was an unexplored room in the center pillar. This was back when I was, like, 12 years old. And I realized, well, the only way that you can actually get there is from the center pillar, so I decided to check it out, and I happened to find the small key. And Believe it or not, that actually the hardest part for me about the Water Temple was actually Dark Link, actually figuring out how to fight him. And I didn't go to any of my friends. I was actually playing the game alone at the time, but I figured it out with Din's Fire eventually, because I got desperate, and well, you got to try every item, and then yeah, and then after I was done with Dark Link, I kept note of all the rooms after I got the long shot of where I was supposed to go, and eventually I actually had a pretty easy time with the Water Temple. This is what I meant in saying I was extremely fortunate. Yeah, I gotta say is that, well, just because natural is one of my favorite elements, and I just got lucky. I guess just what I gotta say about it is that I happened to get lucky. So I gotta say that, well, I'm kind of biased or something with the Water Temple. I don't have those grudges. I don't have those hard feelings that other Zelda players have about the Water Temple, because I never struggled against it. I never did. I kept a cool head. I didn't let myself get overwhelmed or anything. And I'm not saying any of this to brag or anything. I'm just speaking from my 12-year-old perspective, just how everything went. And I was very, very fortunate. I happened to get through the Water Temple in probably about an hour and a half. Probably the biggest thing that stumped me was probably the Dark Link boss fight. That was probably the biggest thing that stumped me. But yeah, I was lucky. I was seriously lucky. And so yeah, I don't have any of those big negative, and that's probably the big reason that the iron boots or anything didn't become a big factor for me, because I wasn't stuck, I wasn't lost or anything, so I didn't need to switch them all the time. I only switched them when it would just happen to be necessary, and so I didn't need to go to the screen too much to switch them. And ever since then, I actually considered the Water Temple to be one of the easier dungeons. And yeah, I'm just speaking from my honest thoughts there, is that yeah, I can't really relate or anything to any other Zelda players or anything that didn't take those steps that I did, and I can't really speak for anybody else about the subject, so I can only speak from my own perspective about it. So, anyways, when it comes to the Water Temple, is that, well, the first thing I want to talk about with the Water Temple, like how it's been circulating around the internet, is that I don't think it's really that much of a problematic temple anymore. It's because, well, when it came out and things, we didn't have any strategy guides or anything, and of course it was just kind of a new concept at the time, and we were still trying to exchange words or something between Zelda players, and so I can understand how a Water Temple was kind of a big stumper at the beginning, though. Though, you have to admit, though, like, there's another part of me that's just kind of saying this, is that, well, after it's been around, like, well, it's been around forever now. The Water Temple has been around forever. A lot of people know Ocarina of Time about, like, the back of their hands. And so I don't think that that's really a problem or anything that held up to today. It's because I'm sure a lot of people, when they go through Ocarina of Time, have probably played it their handful of times. I don't think a lot of people probably struggle with the Water Temple anymore. I'm probably guessing what really holds it back for a lot of people is those bad nostalgic feelings. And there are other things I've heard about too, like some don't like the music, and of course they don't like the switching of the iron boots, and they got lost, or just a lot of things that kind of hold it back for a lot of people, and that's fine. Everybody has the right to things that kind of hold things back for people. But yeah, I think that's kind of one thing that we kind of blown out of proportion was that I don't think the Water Temple is really confusing anymore. I think a lot of Zelda players, a lot of veteran Zelda players nowadays can probably get past it now. I'd probably say that the Great Bay Temple is probably harder than the Water Temple by today's standards anyways. So next thing that I probably want to talk about, probably about the Water Temple, is that I want to talk about Dark Link a little bit, is because, well, for the longest time or something, I couldn't really understand why he was there, because I thought he was something that would be part of the Shadow Temple or something, just something that doesn't really fit or anything within the Water Temple's universe, and so I was kind of stumped with that for a little while, and just trying to figure out what he was doing there. So, I think I'm finally, and this is just all guessing games and everything, but I think the reason that Dark Link is there is because well, when you look at water and things, it's usually a reflection. It's usually a reflection about yourself, and there's quite a bit of Easter eggs, and I'm sure that there's a lot of theories or something that's out there about Dark Link, but I think the simple reason that he's really there, and why the room is there, and why it's the mirage that it is, that it looks like it's in an endless ocean space or something, is because it's all a reflection. But you have to remember something about reflections, is that it looks like something real is there, but it actually isn't. And so, like with the shadow and things, like with the Link, when it disappears underneath his feet when he finds the Dark Link, and that it reappears as a shadow of himself, So I'm probably guessing the whole concept exists with him. It's just because he's a reflection of Link. And I think that kind of fits with water, because it's supposed to be a reflection. It's supposed to be a reflection of yourself. But yeah, I think with the Mirage of the Endless Room, I know a lot of theories have been going around about that, but I think the reason is because that's the thing with reflections. It's not real. It's not supposed to be there. And that's really, at the end of the reason, just kind of what I think of that entire myth about that. And so, I don't really consider it a myth anymore. I think, well, I feel pretty certain about myself anyways, that's really what's going on with Dark Link. It's just kind of something where, if you kind of overthink it, you could blow it out of control and things, and well, now one of my favorite topics to talk about. And then probably the last thing I'll probably talk about when it comes to, I'll probably talk about the boss, which is Morpha, is that the boss happens to be a really controversial boss, just as well with the Water Temple. But the thing that I'm confused with about Morpha, though, is that I wonder if a lot of people just happen to not like the boss because, well, when you don't really like the Water Temple, you've been stumping through it for hours or something, and you've seen this, just like with my Let's Play videos, I think with Volvagia, is that it was hard for me to enjoy the boss because I went through the dungeon for a couple of hours, and that just kind of bled into my enjoyment of really enjoying the boss. So I'm a little bit torn on judging the Morpha boss on what the Zelda community talks about it, because do they hate it because they happen to hate the Water Temple, they've been struggling through it for hours, and then this stupid pink thing just happens to get in their way and they hate it? And of course they're not going to admit that, because that's the way that feelings bleed into each other, is that it's really hard to really judge something objectively if something just right before it or something just happens to like bleed into your judgment or something. And this happens to everybody. Like, if you've been going through something for a really long time, or it could be both positive or negative, that's kind of a big thing that happens in psychology, is that just kind of events that kind of happen before that leads up to an event can really seriously cloud your judgment about something. That's kind of how it's supposed to roll. Like, even though that I'm like setting up my microphone and I'm talking to you guys, pretty much what happens throughout my day or something, or things that led up to this point or something, it could lead me to talk about something else or to judge it just a teensy bit differently. We're just all kind of biased or something in that way. That's just everybody, and that includes me as well. But the other thing that Morpha is also criticized for is that it happens to be an extremely easy boss, and, you know, just like with Goma and King Dodongo. And that's where I'm going to have to put my foot down a little bit, and I have to disagree with the Zelda community a little bit, is because, well, overall, just like what I said, is that Zelda bosses in Ocarina of Time, they're all easy. They all are. All you have to do is just use the item in the dungeons, and then you just swipe it with the sword until they pretty much die. And so, I think when it comes to the easy difficulty, just kind of take it with a grain of salt. I don't really take those criticisms seriously, because all of them do that. Ocarina of Time, it's pretty much step 1, step 2, step 3, and that's just something that just comes with these Zelda games. It's supposed to be kid-friendly, it's supposed to be for everybody, and so if veterans just start tearing it apart just because of the easy difficulty and say, oh, it should be harder and things, then you need to seriously consider that this is a kid's game and that this is for kids. And for first-time Zelda players, it is not meant for people who play through Ocarina of Time more than once. Sorry, I got a little bit blunt there, but that's how I honestly do feel, is that it is an easy game. It is an easy boss. That's just part of what this is. So, I don't think that the criticism has really held up well, in that you can like kill the boss or something, like trap it into a corner and just like manipulate it, and then just like kill it off in just like seconds or something. I don't think that criticism has really held up that well. Just some of the bosses can be exploited more than others, and normally I don't know. But anyways, I'll drop that for now. But overall, my conclusion about the Water Temple is that if you like it, and if you hate it, hate it. That's fine and things. Like part of the reason I can't really judge it objectively is because I was lucky. I was fortunate, and I'm biased. I like water things. I don't mind the iron boots, and even if I had to switch it like over and over again, probably the big reason that I don't really mind the iron boots, the reason it's never really bothered me in the first place, was because all throughout Zelda, you do it all the time. Like whenever you switch items or something, it takes about 2 or 3 seconds in order for you to change items or anything. So my guess is that bled into my subconsciousness by the time I entered into the Water Temple, that, well, I've been doing it all the time with getting different items and different weapons or something and assigning them to my C buttons, and then that bled into my subconsciousness and saying, oh, this isn't really a big deal at all. And part of me probably thinks that it's probably something that the internet probably came with, but at the same time, I have to disagree with that. Is that because, well, people do get lost or something, and people do find that fair criticism. And I know that I think the creators of the Water Temple have said it themselves too. They've had problems or something with that. And so I say if people have had a hard time with the Water Temple because of the iron boots and changing them all the time, then you know what? I think that's fair game. I think that's a fair criticism that people have said about the Water Temple. And I just happen to be one of those people where it just happened to work for me. It just bled, yeah, as I said, is that it just bled into my mind or something that I've been changing items like all throughout the Zelda games, so it's never really been a big problem for me. Again, I was fortunate. I was biased and happened to get lucky in things. And so, Water Temple, now my final conclusion is that, this is something I've got to say, is that with the original, Ocarina of Time, I've already explained all of my thoughts about it, and I think the Water Temple is decent, for me. And I stress that. For me, the Water Temple is just fine for me. I didn't have any problems with it. I like it. I like water. I like the music. I like its soothing melody. I think, thumbs up for me. I think the Water Temple is great. Now, I want to talk about the Master Quest. I want to talk about the Master Quest Water Temple a little bit. And I didn't reveal this on camera or anything when I was with my nephew, but I actually did not like the place. It's because, well, for one thing, is that it felt like the dungeon was just one long hallway, so to say. It's because when I first got in there, is that there was a lot of locked doors, and it forced me to go this one way, and then it forced me to go this one certain way. It was just pretty much just a rule of elimination, and then you just go into this one room, and then you just continue on. And for me, that was really underwhelming. Well, the reason that it's kind of underwhelming is because it blocked off its full potential of the Water Temple. Like, it kind of felt like it took the criticism of it being a hard dungeon a little bit too seriously. Is that now it's too hard, and now all of a sudden it's too easy. Now they changed it from you can go one of these 4 ways or something to you have to go down this one way. It kind of makes it more like a linear route. And I've seen some comments or something from my past videos, is that some say that they like this dungeon a lot more from the original because it's a lot easier. And I can see that in things, but I don't think, personally for me, I don't think that's something that works for me at all. It's because I hate seeing that kind of potential or anything that kind of gets blocked off. I think in the Master Quest mod, I don't think the last third of the dungeon is even available to you at all. Like, they purposely blocked it off. And I don't know why it kind of makes me mad or anything. Maybe it's because I like seeing puzzles, I like seeing the potential that it has or anything. And I gotta say that probably out of all the dungeons in the Master Quest, I gotta say that the Water Temple is probably my worst. Yeah, and I've even said or something that the Forest Temple has been my worst at one point, but I gotta say that the Water Temple is my worst. It's just, it got nerfed. It just became a one-way street the entire time, and I was disappointed. It just meant I just go into this room, just figure out this puzzle, and then move on, and that's pretty much it. And it felt like it didn't put up any challenge or anything. It just felt like it was more of a side dungeon more than anything. I'd probably say it's more comparable to the Ice Cavern more than anything. It didn't feel like a real dungeon. I was disappointed. I couldn't say that in front of my nephew, but I was disappointed. I didn't like what was being presented to me, so as of this video, probably my favorite dungeon in Master Quest is probably the Fire Temple. And my least favorite so far is probably by far the Water Temples. I loved it in Ocarina of Time. I loved it in the normal one. It brought out its potential. It was great. And I was fortunate too, and I happen to like water and things. But even though that I like the water and I like the music and things with the Master Quest mod that's still there, the potential for it was completely nerfed, and I really didn't like that. I just felt like, well, it's like they offer you like this big pizza or something, and then they only offer you like a half of it, or like 3/4 of it. It's not what it was promised to me. That's not the promise I was set up for with Master Quest. So that was the big reason I was disappointed with it, is that I felt like I got ripped off. I felt like, yeah, they were supposed to give me this whole pizza, but they only gave me part of it. I felt ripped off. I felt, I don't know, insert word here or something. But anyways, that's all of my thoughts on it, and I will see you here in a few days with college or something as soon as I get set up and everything. So that's all I got to say about it. So I will see you in the next episode in definitely a few days. I got to get ready for college. So I'll see you guys later.